Peak is a co-op game released in June of 2025. In the past few months, it has gained increased popularity as it became the next popular game for streamers to broadcast to their fans. The objective is simple. You crash land on a secluded island with up to 3 of your friends. You're stranded, scared, and the only way off the island is to climb up. With supplies you find in luggage from the plane crash, you climb multiple mountains with different terrain and obstacles, from poisonous rising fog to the blasting heat of the sun. And as you reach the top of the final peak, you're rescued by a helicopter. It's a simple looking game that is deviously difficult and fun to play. Bouldering is a form of rock climbing that was released before June of 2025. It is performed on small rock formations and artificial rock walls without the use of rope or a harness. Climbers have to use strength, mobility, balance, and problem solving to find the most efficient way up the boulder problem. Before crash landing and becoming stranded on an island, you're here, a peaceful little airport. Lovely, isn't it? Decorated with multitudes of palm trees, vast floor-to-ceiling windows with a wonderful view, and this, a little climbing gym right in the airport. Purchasing the cheapest plane ticket you could find and climbing here would still be cheaper than most gym memberships. This surprising placement of a climbing wall had me thinking, did the developers of this game set real boulder problems on this wall? And what grade would they be? I mean, there's gotta be an objective way to find out. Climbing grades to begin with are already objective, so it should be easy to find out. That's what I love about climbing, the objectivity. There's only one way to climb, and if you try to do it any differently than the intended way, you're bad and you should not be allowed back. But before we get on these boulder problems, we gotta warm up first. We don't want to pop a pulley. I'm not seeing a hangboard anywhere around here. That's tough. No bands to warm up my shoulders either. Who needs to warm up anyway? Nothing bad has happened from not properly warming up. Starting to feel a bit lonely out here all by myself. This game is meant to be played with friends after all. Pulling one another up, sharing supplies, laughing together when things inevitably go wrong. But in typical boulder fashion, I'll be doing this solo. I'm gonna be the equivalent of that guy in the climbing gym who has his hood up, headphones on, and looks pissed as hell. I don't need friends to play this game. They'd just slow me down, I'm sure. You see, I already have an advantage. These streamers might have years and years of playing Fadian games, but they're not climbers. No, not like me. Even some of them have climbed before, but they haven't read 2 separate climbing autobiographies like me. With my background in climbing and gaming, yeah, I'm sure this little kid's game isn't going to be too tough for a V3 climber like myself. As we go through the first level, I'll be giving parts of it a V grade to get my mind warmed up for grading the climbs in the airport. To you, these grades might feel arbitrary. And they will be. Nico! But this isn't bouldering. This is closer to sport or trad climbing. Shouldn't we be using the Yosemite decimal system or even the E-grade system? Yeah, probably. But we're not going to do that, okay? And you know why? Because using the V-grade scale is funnier. And I want to be funny. Ooh, some luggage. I wonder what goodies we can find. I'm hoping for some RX bars and creatine. A piton. Won't be needing that. Protection is aid. It's not really a first ascent unless my life is on the line. This large pillar would be a good first thing to grade. A simple and easy climb in-game is quite the opposite in the real world. I mean, this is just a cement wall. But there is surprisingly a similar real-life example of this climb to get a better idea of what grade this might be. Exumus is a boulder problem in Hustapeche, in the Czech Republic. It lives underneath an overpass, and as of the filming of this video, has 2 sens. The first being a priest, and the second being Adamandra. The grade, V13. Looking back at the pillar in the game, it's hard to know exactly the width of the cement block. If narrow enough, the boulder could be far easier with the possibility of heel hooks and compression, but if too wide, you'd be forced to use the frog technique similar to Adam. And for those reasons, I'm giving this first boulder also a V13. And after climbing to the top of the pillar, we'll need to rest and let our stamina bar recharge. This is similar to real bouldering, which is mostly just sitting down and yapping with your friends. As our little friend rests up, let's move our attention back to the climbing wall at the airport. To properly assess what the grades will be, we'll need a few things first. What is the material of the wall? How tall is the wall? What are the angles of the wall? What are the closest real-life examples of the climbing holds the developers put on this artificial wall? How many times do you think I just said wall? If you're liking this niche video about climbing and haven't already, subscribe. I've got other niche climbing videos on my channel and more to come. Anyway, wall material. Based on my research, there are 3 main materials used for climbing walls: fiberglass, sprayed concrete, and plywood. Plywood is by far the most popular used in commercial gyms, but fiberglass is often used in tandem with plywood due to plywood's constraints and flexibility. Fiberglass can be made into basically any shape with any curve imaginable. It's important to know the material of the wall because that can dictate the texture and likelihood of being able to smear. Sprayed concrete and other wood walls without a texture applied make it more difficult to smear on the wall, and you're forced to only use the footholds provided by the setters. With no curves and an almost identical look to a commercial plywood wall, it's safe to assume it's our traditional birch plywoods with an added 2.5mm texture grain. Height. Traditionally, commercial walls are anywhere from 10 to 20 feet. For competitive bouldering, the International Federation of Sport Climbing rules that climbing walls must be no higher than 14.8 feet from the matting to manage fall height. The maximum recommended bouldering wall height for commercial gyms is 15 feet, but there is no enforced regulations on wall height in the United States. Touchstone, the most popular network of gyms here in California, has bouldering walls from 14 to 17 feet. That gives us a range of what height it could be, but I want to be more exact. First, I thought if I could figure out if the in-game airport is based on an airport that actually exists, I could then find the schematics for the airport and figure out the heights of the walls from there. The developers of Peak are from Sweden, so I began looking at photos of any and all airports in the country, but I could find no matches to the airport in Peak. The case went cold. Then I noticed the tiling on the walls. If we could figure out the dimensions of a single square tile, we could find the height of the climbing wall. After some intense scientific research, I found this tile that matched. It's 10 inches by 10 inches. With the climbing wall being 30 tiles tall, that in turn makes the final height of the climbing wall 25 feet. Certainly on the more dangerous side with that height, plus the pad setup is far from desirable. With cracks in between each pad and an improper space between the padding and the walkway, it's a lawsuit due to the gym's negligence waiting to happen. Wall angles. The angles of the wall are important because they will give a better idea of how difficult a boulder problem could be. Now, you can set a difficult boulder problem with any wall angle, but it's much more challenging to set an easier boulder problem on a steeper angle. For the gym I climb at, the easiest route they set on a 40-degree overhang is V3 and V4 on a roof climb. This gives us a better understanding of the lowest possible grades that could be set at such angles. There are three main faces of this climbing wall, all consisting of different angled walls. We have slab, vertical, and overhung. Now, I cheated on almost every geometry exam I ever took, and that was over a decade ago, so I'm just going to do my best here and we're going to give me the benefit of the doubt. The front-facing wall is comprised of 6 different panels, but for simplicity, we're going to knock that down to 3 main sections. The introductory section at 120 degrees, which you could just stand on, it's so declined. The slightest slab section at 95 degrees, and lastly, the vertical wall at a clean 90-degree angle. For the right face, we have another introductory section at 145 degrees, a slab at 110 degrees, and then the steepest part of the entire climbing wall at a 45-degree overhang. The left face is similar to the front with, you guessed it, a very walkable introductory section at 145 degrees, slab at 115, and then the slightest of overhangs at 85. In total, there are 13 routes on the climbing wall, and out of respect for your time, we're just going to grade 3 of the boulder problems, 1 on each face of the wall. We'll be focusing on the yellow route on the front face, the blue route on the right face, and the green route on the left face. But to grade these routes, we need one more thing. Holds. Are there real-life versions of these holds, and did the developers set intentional routes? That was the question I was out to answer. So I scoured the internet for catalogs of climbing holds to find the exact matches. And wow, there are a lot of holds. Pages and pages and pages and pages of holds. Many of the holds on the wall look recognizable. I can almost feel them in my hand. I researched holds from Cheetah, Atomic, Walltopia, Essential, and EP. This hold looks like a Cheetah hold possibly. Is it a Sky High volume or is it the Shadow's NA12 from Expression? Maybe the Fox's 15. No, it doesn't have dual texture. How about the Squadra Fictal 14? Yes, it could be that. I can feel myself getting so close. The Fictal 2 is looking pretty close, but it's not perfect. I want it to be perfect. It looks like a jug, but maybe it's a sloper? That must be why I couldn't find it, because it's a sloper. I've gone through 19 pages on Holdtopia and I couldn't find it, and that's just one site. This is just the first hold I need to track down of 60. 1 down, 59 to go. That's what I'll say when I find the first hold. I'm not going crazy, you're going crazy. All I see is holds. When I close my eyes, holds. When I go to sleep, I dream of holds. When I'm awake, climbing holds are burned into my retinas. Everything is holds. And then there it was, right in front of me the whole time, at my very own climbing gym. It's a perfect match. I don't know the brand or the name of the hold, but I found it. That's what matters. And I'm not going to do that another 59 times. The yellow boulder on the front face is comprised of 11 moves. Now the start is easy. 2 feet on either side, and a 2-hand start on a small foot chip. You're forced to lean forward on the extremely declined slab sitting at 120 degrees. You could easily stand on here without handholds. All you gotta do is drop those heels and lean forward. Then we enter what I suspect to be the crux sequence. The angle shifts to 110 degrees, and your footholds have run out. You smear up the wall while matched on a slope pinch and push off, dynoing to a small sloper. After that, it should be smooth sailing with a jug haul to the top. My estimate, this would be graded V12. No, it's probably V3, V4. What determines if this is a 3 or 4 to me is the distance of the dyno and the quality of the hold you're jumping to. The blue boulder problem off the bat looks a bit more technical. A similar start with being able to walk up the low-angled first panel of the wall, but it quickly picks up once you're forced to move past the initial jugs and are left with a few crimpy moves on a significant overhang. You should have a good foothold right here to prepare yourself for a big move out right to a large slopey fiberglass hold. Once your hands are matched on that hold, you can use the former crimps as foot chips to work your hands up to the top. I'm putting this boulder at a V4, V5. The green boulder on the left face is the final route we'll be grading of the day. Similar to the previous two, it starts simple enough before it introduces its first crux sequence as you work yourself to the right. Holding on to 2 slope pinches, you're forced to get a high left foot on a sloper before locking off towards another pinch. Once your left hand is on the pinch, you'll need to swap feet and flag out left, before moving your right hand to a large sloper. Now having both hands on adjacent slopers and placing your feet out right, you'll move your right hand to the first crimp of the route. At this point, you're fairly high up, higher than you would be in basically any commercial gym, and forced to use the worst holds on the route with the last 2 crimps before topping out. I say V5 or V6 on this one, depending on the depth of the crimps. And now you've done it! You made it to the top only to realize there's no proper way down. There's no dedicated down climbing jugs or stairs. Maybe that's what this rope is for. Now let's see how our little guy is doing on his expedition to the top of the mountain. Has he reached the peak?